Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. First of all, it's the middle of the night. I really wanted to record, but I might look a bit tired. It's because I am. It's 2 a.m., but I really wanted to record this video for you because, as we all know, the YCS Hartford just concluded, and I figured, like I did with the last one, I just want to go over the decks, the top deck, a couple controversies. I have no idea why that I said that in such a weird way. It's a couple controversies surrounding the YCS and just round everything off. I have the top 32 breakdown to start things off with. And before we begin, I would like to encourage you to interact with me in the comments. Let me know if you were maybe at the YCS, how it went. Were the decks as represented as you maybe expected? How did your deck perform? What do you think of the YCS, controversies, decks, top 32, everything surrounding it. Also, I would like to encourage you to subscribe. A lot of you are still not, and I would really love for you to be part of this community. So, with all of that being said, we can go ahead and get started. So, I have the top 32 breakdown over here. Honestly, first of all, I love the diversity of it. I think that it's quite interesting how many Despia there actually was at the event and how sort of the conversion rates weren't really there as much as they were expected, at least on my part, and I'm assuming that some part of the community felt that way as well. But we have Swordso here, which the conversion rate was really strong, as well as Punk, but Swordso was really represented, which says a lot about the deck, and I think Swordso is like the fairest deck in the meta right now, and I genuinely like it a lot. But then you look at something like Punk, which performed really well, considering it just started to gain popularity and support from Dimensions Force, and now we can see actual success, and I think that's really nice because there is a lot of interesting choices when it comes to decks that include Punk, and we will go over these decks as well. But yeah, I mentioned Branded for a bit, Branded Despia. I guess the conversion rates weren't really there, but there was still almost the same representation. So 7 Punk, 7 Swords, so 6 Despia, so it's not that big of a difference. But then you look at other decks, and most of them were played at about 3 or 2 players per the top 32. For example, Sky Striker only had 3 representatives and Drytron only had 2, but 2 of these decks actually managed to get all the way to top 4, which is really interesting and says a lot about the actual players and how they build their deck and how they played. We have Flunder, naturally, there's 3 Flunder as well, but then we have ABC, Dragon Link, DDD, and Atignister. Like, as much as the last format felt horrible with Anaconda, DPE, Prank Kits, and Brave, and this format, to me, honestly, for a little bit, started feeling a bit weird with the overwhelming take of Despia over the entire meta. But right now, I think it's really nice seeing how a top cut can really be diverse. You have DDD, you have Atignister, and honestly, I really, really, really like that. Hopefully something like that continues. So yeah, with that being said, we could probably just jump to the deck lists because they're really interesting. I compiled them from everywhere I could find them, and they have a lot of different choices. It is how it usually is in a format. You need to build your deck accordingly to the event, your preference, your skill level, like basically everything that you want, you can do with a deck. But right now it especially feels, I keep looking down because I have different builds up here on the screen, and I'm trying to make a point about how it really feels as though you can really play whatever you want when it comes to a specific deck that can be taken many different routes. And we will see a couple of these deck lists. I have like 2 Tenyi, and I have 2 Drytron, for example. I have 2 Punk stuff, and everything is different. The main idea is there, but the actual tech choices and the reasoning behind them, if you listen to the players and the player interviews, they make sense, and I really like when a player actually builds their deck and knows what they're talking about and knows what goes into it, or they build it with a team or whatever it may be. But I really think that it's important to know that when we are looking at these deck lists, it's really to each their own. You have your specific personal reasoning, and these deck lists are just, I guess, an idea. So yeah, I love going over them with you. So firstly, we have the top 32 Calvin's Decklist for Tinny Sorzo. And I guess the interesting thing in here would be the Fire Tinny, which according to him is just there for the circle, because if you want Moye to dodge, you want to go into something that can actually provide different attributes for Baxia, and I think that's really smart. So there's that. And he also played the Revive spell card, which, you know, it's a nice deck. You can play it, you don't need to play it, but it's there if you want it. And then the extra deck is pretty basic, but you have the Adamantia water monster, which I like that monster a lot. I think it's just a fair card, just a fair negate, and I like it when a deck can include it, but that's really like, you know, personal opinion, but I like that he played that. But then you have the side deck, and the most interesting thing in it is Mistaken Arrest, which, you know, is such a cool tech, but not every deck can run it. So you need to decide if it's actually worth it in your strategy, but I think the reasoning behind it just makes sense, and the idea behind it I think is amazing. So there's that. You have Mistaken Arrest, and then we have the first of the Punk pile deck, and it's essentially just Jet Synchron stuff. You will go for the Sight Lock in this one, so you have Sight, you have TG Wonder Magician, Shooting Riser, Hulk. So this is like just a turbo to go into Hulk with the help of all of the extenders you have, the Punk Engine, you have Adventure stuff, you have Magician Souls with Illusion, space for hand traps, and just you aim for the Sight Lock, but you have a lot of utility in the extra deck as well when it comes to a lot of different synchros. They also had space for example, something like the Earth Charmer, which, you know, is there if you want to use it. But, you know, Selene Axis combo, essentially this deck is just a huge utility pile that sight locks on top of it. And you have snow, you have, like I mentioned, space for hand traps. And now that we're on topic of hand traps, Droll was actually so popular. And I think this is a really good meta call. I think Droll is amazing. It's good against every single strategy almost, if you look at it. And if it's not in your main deck, it should probably be in your side deck, in my opinion. Now we have the other Punk pile, which this Punk pile is 54 cards. And I listened to the player interview, and the players were definitely convinced that this is the right number and that this just makes sense. And honestly, it doesn't seem like any card is there that it shouldn't be. You have some, I guess, tech choices, and you have the theory and stuff as well. But other than that, it does similar stuff, but they argued that the theory engine provides a backbone, which I guess you need something, because this deck, and I have always described this deck that way, it doesn't actually have an archetype or an engine, unless you want to count Red Rose, but now that it's at 1, I guess that's sort of not the case. So that's the reasoning behind it. And they also have Mystic Mine and Droplet, and we're going to be on topic of Mystic Mine a bit later, so I guess you can assume now that this is going to be the controversy we are going to be addressing. But what I wanted to say right now, in this point in time, is the fact that people like to run, from what I've seen in deck lists, Mine and Saturation and Terraforming, and also another field spell, naturally. So this is really like it just becoming this sort of mini engine, you know, of just different field spells, the Terraforming, Saturation, and the Mystic Mine to be able to go second, especially if you don't run hand traps. So it's really interesting to see, but we're gonna touch upon that a bit later. But they have the tuning as well, which I think is cool, and naturally like a lot of ability in the extra deck, like we mentioned before. And the side deck tech choice was Linguribo for Ibli, because Ibli just straight up annihilates you. So if you're going up against a deck with Ibli, Linguribo would be the option for you. And then we have the first Joy-Chan deck, and they're very much different, so I won't spend too much time. I don't want this video to be too long, so if you're still here, you know, I'm very glad to have you. But the main difference in this Joy-Chan build and the other Joy-Chan build is that this one focuses on the ritual. I'll have it probably somewhere on the screen. I couldn't remember the name. I couldn't even pronounce the name, but it's the ritual that skips your opponent's next main phase. So yeah, this is the focus of the deck. It's not Vanity's Ruler, and they just have they maximize on Joy-Chan stuff, and they just have, regular Drytron stuff. And then they have Lala Golem in the side deck, which I also think is a cool tech choice and a cool meta call, because you are going to be able to out certain boards easily and you don't need to deal with it. So there's that, and the extra deck is quite standard. Herald of Mirage Lights is seeing a comeback. And then I guess we can skip to the other Drytron build, because I wanted to mention the difference. And this one is also very much focused on the Mystic Mine engine that I mentioned before, and you have the Ritual Sanctuary as well. And overall this deck is quite standard, except for the fact that it has the Vanity's Ruler, only one Diviner, and less Drytron. And they also run the Magic-y package, which I think is always smart in a deck like this, where if you can play a trap card that will be able to protect you, something that is not necessarily a monster that can get Droplet or Dark Ruler or whatever, I think it's a good call to play it. I was a fan of the trap card in Trap Brigade, where you would be able to send it and just not get blown out completely. That's besides the point. I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, other than that, stuff is pretty standard. And now we can jump to the other deck list. We have the Attic Nister deck list. So yeah, this one is also running mine, but it is a going second build. So you have Lightning Storm as well. You have a lot of hand traps, and then you have your one card combos. So it's one of those decks similarly to something like Prankits, where you have a lot of space for deck cards, and this person decided to go second, which is an interesting choice, honestly, but it seemed to have worked, obviously. So you have also double access code, which is nice, and the new Deco Talker Heat Soul, which is a very welcome addition. And then I guess just turbo Attic Nister stuff, and then just going second stuff when it comes to Gamma and Lightning Storm, Mine, also Terraforming, and also Small World, which I always like to see as a tech choice. Then we have that Despia build, which this Despia build is pretty much the most standard you could get almost, but they do have a crossout, which crossout, if you're expecting to play a very mirror heavy meta, crossout is even more busted than just playing, than just you playing a couple things that might out you successfully. But I still think it's a neat card, but it can seem a bit bricky, especially if you're going for a turbo kind of build. So to each their own, of course, but you have just a very, very standard Despia build, and the tech of Necroworld, Banshee, and Zombie World in the side deck, I think, is gaining a lot of popularity. It just easily outs something like Flunder. More than likely it's going to be against Flunder. There's other decks as well, but Flunder is the toughest matchup for a lot of decks. So the Necroworld, Banshee, and Zombie World is really nice to side if you're able to send it to the graveyard, which a lot of decks can do nowadays. So, yeah, speaking of Flunder, we have the Flunder build, also a very standard one, although there is no Dark Ruler or nothing like that in the main deck, which I've seen a lot, but there is Talents and a main deck of 2 copies of Harpy's Featherstorm. So yeah, that trap card is, very nice. And then we have a couple one-offs in the side deck. One Lightning Storm, one Regeki, one Twin Twister, one Harpies, obviously it's a 1, but others are just there for utility, and then you just have a very, standard Flunder extra deck, I guess. It's just random stuff that would, in theory, work for you or in your favor if you come in that kind of situation, but it's not very likely. We mentioned the Drytron stuff. I'm just going over it, here on my computer, so I need to skip that. And then the last one is going to be another Sorcerer build, which this one doesn't run as many circles, but it does run vessels. So they have 2 circle, 2 vessel. And the first person said that they are not a fan of vessel because it essentially just really gets you going while you are already playing, and circle just helps you dodge stuff. I'm a fan of 2/2. I think it's cool for whichever utility you may need in that certain point in time. Other than that, it's pretty standard. They have Shatana instead of the fire one, but that's pretty much it. And other stuff is very basic, like just very cookie cutter sorts of stuff. But of course, you have a lot of different options if you want, like I mentioned before. So maybe before we end this, I want to point out how I like the Forbidden Chalice in the main deck, because it is an auto token collector, and since this deck really struggles against it, of course it's nice if you're the one controlling token collector. It's not exactly that great, but yeah, I think it's cool that a deck can effectively play an out to a card that disrupts them or just straight up kills them. Not only that they can play an out, but the out actually does something, because it is just an impermanence if you look at it that way, or a Veiler, but they can actually set it going first and use it going second. So, you know, to outboard, it's not just the card that outs you. So I like that because it doesn't add anything, I guess, bricky to a deck, if you know what I mean. It's just nice utility. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the deck lists. And now we are going to take a look at the winning deck list. I didn't forget it. But it is, you know, it's something. Basically, it's Striker. And I guess we could address the controversy right now. Mystic Mine, right? They played Mystic Mine, and they did a lot of stuff with Mystic Mine. Essentially, my 2 cents on it. I don't want to spend too much time. And if you disagree with me, you are very much welcome to let me know in the comments. But how I view Mystic Mine is, I don't think it's an issue, or at least as big of an issue as people like to put it. Because most of the time when people get angry about Mine, it's not because they're actually objectively looking at the game and the well-being of the game, but it's because they were outed by Mine and they lost because of Mine. And we all have. Like, I legit got Exodia'd because of Mine at locals, and I'm cool with that because it's just whatever. And I also understand and remember I was angry a lot of times when I just got Mystic Mind, but then I realized that, you know, either I wasn't prepared for it, or I would have killed the person anyway with my combo heavy 5 negate Dragonling board, you know? So at the end of the day, it's really you or them. And if you have a board that inherently should win because you went first and you put up this huge board of negates, or you put up something like a Despia board which just never stops and just has Chimera, has this negate, you know, in Dragostapelia, has the Mirror Jade, has the Mirror Jade's second effect, has the follow-up, and it's either them or you with that Mystic Mind that maybe they weren't prepared for. And, you know, it's sort of how I view it. It's a strong card going second if you use it to just break a board, or not exactly to outdeck your opponent, but for you to be able to play. So yeah, there's that. So I guess, you know, hopefully that makes sense, but I guess that's why I don't see as big of a problem in it, because a deck like Sky Striker, which really isn't exactly a favorite right now, it's not bad and has a really good Despia matchup, and other ones as well. Like, the deck is just sort of struggling if they don't see Ray, so that would be the actual issue, and how to actually build it properly, since now DPE is gone and there's a bit of, you know, weird stuff regarding that. But other than that, Striker is really not something all of us expected to be in the finals. So if a deck like that can just hang because of Mystic Mine, it's kind of whatever to me. So yeah, hopefully there's not too much heat in the comments because of that. But yeah, pretty much if we actually go and look at the deck, they played Demise of the Land, which this card I really dislike, but that's just story for another time. So Demise of the Land, Deep Barrier in the main deck, and also Trap Chick. This deck was just built to compete at this event, and I really like that. You need to think of the actual event you're going to. And then they have the Sanctum package in the side deck, which is pretty much standard. I also love the addition of Jamming Waves in the side deck. I always wanted to play that in the side deck whenever I play Striker. I just love the card a lot if I wasn't maining it. And the extra deck is very, very standard. They have the Selena Axis package. So yeah, other than the Mystic Mind stuff and the D-Barrier, it's pretty much just Striker stuff. And then the last thing, I want to be very brief about it, but people were sort of complaining of how prizes at side events were bigger than at the actual main event, and to me they seemed a bit bigger. Or if they want to have prizes that big in the side events, the prize in the main event should probably be bigger. Overall, Yu-Gi-Oh! Prizes aren't exactly viewed as very good. So I think the side event prizes were nice if they actually made it a bit more like alike, I guess. But I did want to point out that if you competed at a side event, it's you need to enter a lot if you're not exactly successful. So at that point, it's sort of like a carnival, you know, you're just trying your luck, and you wanna do that and repeat that many times. So you pay a lot of entries, and at that point in time, if you're successful, I think you're pretty much the servant of a very big prize. So I guess that's what I wanted to say. Maybe they could have upped the other prizes as well, but if people actually entered a lot of tournaments and played at a lot of them, maybe didn't do so well, played again, and then they compiled all of their tickets, you know, it's kind of whatever. So there's that. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. I have no idea how long I recorded. I'm so tired. I can barely keep my eyes open. So yeah, if you enjoyed, if you were entertained, informed, anything of the sort, please make sure to let me know, like the video, sub, check out all of the social media, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!